Oh my God! That's completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
And to those who idolize Luigi Mangione, I say this: violence is not a cause, murder is not a message, and a killer is certainly not a hero.
Luigi Mangione has admitted in court to killing a healthcare insurance executive and pleaded guilty to federal charges of stalking the executive with the intent to kill him. The guilty plea will avert a federal trial in the closely watched case over the killing of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, a crime that was condemned by public officials but became emblematic of Americans' frustration with health insurance industry practices. It could also allow him to seek dismissal of state murder charges and delay an upcoming trial in that case.
With today's guilty plea, Mr. Mangione has accepted full responsibility for the death of Brian Thompson, arising from the events of December 4th, 2024, outside of the UnitedHealthcare Investor Conference here in Midtown Manhattan. It was a single tragic event, yet he's being prosecuted twice for the same conduct. As Luigi explained in court today, he endured years of severe, debilitating pain following a broken back, while struggling to navigate our healthcare and health insurance systems. Like the thousands of people who have reached out since this tragedy to share their own experiences, he believed that the system had failed him and destroyed his life.
This was not a spontaneous act of violence. It was deliberate, calculated, and premeditated. In the days leading up to the murder, the defendant very carefully prepared for the attack. He tracked Mr. Thompson's whereabouts, conducted surveillance along the route he knew Mr. Thompson would take, and positioned himself to carry out the plan. Mangione attempted to send a public message through violence, but the message that emerges today is very different. Violence is not a legitimate instrument to promote any political or social message. And those who resort to violence in an effort to advance their beliefs will be prosecuted, convicted, and put in jail.
28-year-old Mangione previously pleaded not guilty in April 2025 to murder, weapons, and stalking charges brought by Manhattan federal prosecutors. U.S. District Judge Margaret Garnett threw out the murder and weapons charges over legal technicalities in a surprise ruling in January 2026. The decision eliminated the possibility that Mangione would face the death penalty in the federal case, though he still faces a possible sentence of life without parole if convicted on the remaining stalking charges. Mangione separately pleaded not guilty in December 2024 to state terrorism, murder, weapons, and forgery charges brought by Manhattan District Attorney Alton Bragg. The terrorism charges were thrown out by a judge in September 2025. A trial in that case is scheduled for September 8, 2026, before Justice Gregory Caro in Manhattan. Mangione would face 25 years to life in prison if convicted of second-degree murder.
I think Mangione pled guilty because he didn't have a lot of good options. First of all, the state and the feds have very strong cases against him. Almost all the evidence came in the state case, and all the evidence would be coming in the federal case. And in this federal case, there is not even any option to go for an extreme emotional disturbance defense. So he was likely to be convicted anyway. And so this might have just come down to preferring to be in a federal prison over a state prison. So interstate stalking has a pretty wide range of sentencing possibilities under the guidelines, but because this resulted in death, he is likely to be sentenced at the very high range and could, in fact, get life. And in federal court, there really is no parole.
Resolving the federal case could allow Mangione to seek dismissal of the murder charge under New York's double jeopardy law, which protects people from being prosecuted twice for the same conduct. Bragg's office would oppose the move, arguing that the murder charge is legally distinct from the federal charges. Whoever loses will likely seek an emergency appeal.
There's a strategic decision around double jeopardy. So because this case is coming first in federal court, he can make the argument in state court that double jeopardy attaches and that he shouldn't be able to be tried in state court. So double jeopardy is in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution and says that you can't be tried twice for the same thing. New York has a statute that's more protective of a defendant's double jeopardy right. This is really a different crime, whether there are different elements to the crime, whether there's a different harm that's being vindicated, whether it's a different incident. The defense is going to argue that this is really the same incident. We're talking about the killing, of Brian Thompson, one person, one incident. The prosecution, on the other hand, is going to say, look, the federal court, they were handling this interstate stalking, which is a very different thing. They don't want people going between states or using interstate communications to stalk people. That's very different than vindicating a murder that happens on the local streets of Manhattan.